politics, is the politics our nation needs today. The Liberal Democrats and the Conservatives are and always will be separate parties with distinct histories and different futures. But for this Parliament, we work together to fix the problems we face and put the country on a better path. This is the right government for right now. Our first job, however, is a difficult one. Balancing the budget. I didn't come into politics to make spending cuts, but it's the only choice if we want to steer Britain out of the economic mess Labour made. The only choice if we want to bring back hope and optimism to our nation. We are gripped by a crisis, and it's the worst kind. It's invisible. You can't see the debts mounting up. Walk the high street, go to work, talk to your friends. You won't see the signs of our debts or our deficit. The numbers sound alarming, but in the end, they're just numbers. It doesn't feel like we can't afford things. So how did this debt crisis happen? Put simply, over the course of the recession, 6% of our economy disappeared. The shock was so profound that even now the economy is growing again. We are poorer today than we thought we would be. All the old predictions about our future economy, predictions on which spending plans have been based, have turned out to be wrong. We can't keep spending money as if nothing had changed. The problems are there. They are real. And we have to solve them. It's the same as a family with earnings of £26,000 a year who are spending £32,000 a year, even though they've already got £40,000 of debt. Imagine if that was you. You'd be crippled by the interest payments. You'd set yourself a budget and you'd try to spend less. That is what this government is doing. This isn't new for Liberal Democrats. Speak to councillors who led councils across the country. They know what it's like to pick up the pieces after Labour spent a community dry. Newcastle, Sheffield, Lambeth, Southwark, and right here in Liverpool, our council leaders know the poorest are the ones that suffer when the finances get out of control and money has to be spent on debts. They know there is nothing fair about denying you have a problem and simply leaving it for the next generation to clear it up. Would you ask your children to pay your credit card bill? I've heard some people say, no, I guess that should be the answer. I'm giving you ideas now. You're not going to find the answer. I've heard some people say that the cuts we're making are somehow taking Britain back to the 1980s, or even the 1930s, dismantling the state. It isn't true. Even when all the cuts have happened, we will still be spending 41% of our national income, the same amount we were spending in 2006. The spending review is about balance and responsibility, not slash and burn. Of course I wish things are pain-free internally. Who wouldn't? But whatever Labour say now, there isn't one. Not even in Alistair Darling's old plans. They too would have meant massive cuts. Delay won't solve the problems. In fact, it would make them worse. We could have decided to go more slowly, but it would have worsened, not eased the pain. Because every day you ignore a deficit, it gets harder to fix. The debts mount up, and you have to pay interest on them. Already we're spending £44 billion a year on interest alone. Under Labour's plans, that would have risen to nearly £70 billion. A criminal waste of money that shouldn't be lining the pockets of bond traders. It should be paying for police, care workers, hospitals and schools. That's why this government's aim is that by the time of the next election, our debt problems will be sorted, our debts falling as a proportion of national income. We will have wiped the slate clean for the next generation. In making these changes, we will learn from the mistakes of previous recessions. We will not repeat the mistakes of the 1980s, in which whole communities were hollowed out. I know from my own constituents in Sheffield how worried people are that cuts will hurt the north in the way the industrial changes of the 1980s did. So let me say to everybody in those communities, in Scotland and Wales too, many of whose lives were torn apart, yes, it'll be difficult, but it will not be like the 80s. We will not let that happen. We will make these cuts as fairly as possible, finding money for the pupil premium to help children get the best start in life, reforming welfare to help people get back to work. We will not let capital spending, investment in new buildings, infrastructure and repairs be swept away as it was in the past. We have a £1 billion regional growth fund targeted specifically at creating growth in those areas of the country that have been dependent on public sector jobs. We've offered a national insurance tax credit to employers who set up new companies outside London and the wider South East. And we are determined to wean the economy off Labour's lopsided obsession with financial services in the City of London. Rebalancing our economy so opportunity is never again concentrated only in the southeast corner of our island. So no matter what your background or where you live, you have the opportunities you crave. Now the destination is the right one, but getting there is going to be hard. So those thousands of people who work in the public sector, who do such an outstanding job in our schools, hospitals, police forces and local councils, I say this. I know these are very unsettling times for you. I won't hide the fact that we need to take difficult decisions today to ensure there are good, affordable public services tomorrow. We have protected the funding for the NHS, the biggest public service of all. We will provide more, not less money, for the children in our schools who need the most help. But I know that you'll be thinking, why should you have to make any sacrifices to deal with a recession you didn't cause? Why are the bankers who helped create the mess not taking more of the blame? Why should you have to accept a pay freeze or changes to your pension when the richest still get away with paying little or no tax at all? I agree. That's why we imposed a levy on the banks in our first budget. It's why we're working hard with our friends in Europe and beyond on the idea of a financial activities tax on profits, pay and bonuses. It's why we're going to force the banks to publish the often ludicrous pay and bonuses they still give out. It's why our banking commission is looking at whether to split up the banks completely to keep our economy safe. And it's why we're working flat out to get the